Lector!
The comet fell in a forest near the free city-state of Aguila. Soon after, the cattle began to leave the paths at night and disappear into the woods, along with the villagers who owned them. A rumor spread that something began taking possession of the living and the dead, controlling them like puppets. The outskirts of Aguila died out, remaining parents and refugees overflowed the city. The paralyzing fear of the unknown awaited everyone, the living dead, the dead alive. Anyone could be possessed. The merchant guild that runs the city sent a delegation to the temple of the Autumn Flight Paladins to ask them to investigate the matter. The temple stood in this very forest.
This is the opening scene to the movie The Dead Need No Chairs, made by claymation artist Konrad Uberhart. The world is as gritty as its battles, and the violence is neither glorified nor held back for fantasy's sake. There's an evil lich lurking somewhere in the world, and no one knows who to trust. A band of heroes from a stronghold within the land set out to crush the source of evil, as commissioned by Shady Merchant Guy number 1. My favorite parts of the movie are honestly the sound design and characters. People like Anna, Balder, and Astrid show an unwavering sense of loyalty, love, and devotion to the people around them, and most of all, God. Meanwhile, Joseph is hilarious and a character as old as time itself that deals with a lack of faith and a resulting alcoholism due to it, which kind of makes me think of myself and my own weaknesses at times. If you like character-driven stories that are action-packed, dark, and full of spectacle and cool effects, then this is for you. Check it out and let me know your thoughts. Now, the next section of the video will not be spoiler-free. I'm going to spoil the shit out of the movie. I'm going to be talking about what I like, what I dislike, and you know, my thoughts and hopes for the future installation. So please, I implore you, go watch the movie. Go watch the movie. I don't care if I don't get the view. Go watch the movie and then come back so you can engage with the video in a more informed way. So you can tell me, no, that's bullshit, or I agree. You know, guys, please, go ahead. Right now. You still there? All right. Cause I know some of y'all not gonna, you're not gonna give a fuck. So if you still want to hear my thoughts on the movie, despite never having seen it, which I think is dumb and I don't condone, and I think that you should go watch it. If you want to stay, fuck it. Welcome. So for the spoiler section, first of all, fuck the city council dude, and I'm pretty sure he set everyone up. Maybe along the way to the castle he also got, or maybe even before the events of the movie itself. I don't trust him. I don't like him. He's slimy. He left his people behind, and then he ran, and he just think his money just run shit. Listen, dog, he is, I don't know, man. I don't know. If he's not corrupted, he's gonna be corrupted in the second movie. Now, let's go into religious devotion and my favorite part of this movie. The first scene that showed me that this would be different than your run-of-the-mill action movie in the scene around 6:38, where Balder puts one hand in the air and prays over a fallen comrade. I just love how, we take a second away from the action and he silently prays to his God that they will meet again. You feel me? Like, there's a true, genuine brotherhood in this. Balder wasn't some random mercenary that was just hired to do a job and that's that. He cared about the people he was fighting with. And I think that's a part of the reason why I hate the merchant guy. Because he didn't give a fuck. He left. He ain't cried about no tears. Balder not only fought the battle that he didn't want to fight, but Balder also prayed that the fallen soldiers would be able to have a good afterlife. You feel me? Like, come on, dog. Balder for president. Either way, the characters' devotion to their god and the faith they hold close to the chest is really endearing. It also makes sense that you would hold, so tight to your religion or faith in trying times, and also why people gravitate to drugs in trying times. The religious themes also explain Astrid's choice to wear minimal clothing as possible, as a promise to her Lord. And it makes this thing that is usually just like sexualizing women, or, sometimes it's female empowerment if you're taking ownership of it, But in this case, they're doing it for God. And I think that's super fucking refreshing because it puts a twist on things, right? She's wearing this bikini-like outfit, not to show herself off, not because other people oogling at her or whatever, but this is like proof that I don't need armor in order to defeat the evil. You know what I'm saying? And that becomes really important later on when she is fighting people who are armored and are literally embodiments of said evil, right? It really makes it feel true and meaningful. If a reclamation of wearing the clothes you desire is important because you're doing it for yourself, right? Imagine how much more it would mean for you to do so not because of what the world demands of you or to satisfy your own ideas of yourself, but as a promise to God, something greater than you, right? Astrid as a warrior is risking it all to show the world that human invention means little in the face of the Lord, and thus proves it on the battlefield by not needing said armor to protect her. Although she has a shield, but I guess that's okay because she meant like wearable armor, but whatever, But this is brought to a head when she faces the Lich's warrior of the undead in full armor, versus her like lion cloth attire and a shield and a sword at minute 42, and they're really standing head to head. And you really see how it's like the evil is dead ass armored up, deck toe to toe with a big ass sword, and it's just this nearly naked woman with a sword and just her God. And she's like, "Fuck it, we going toe to toe. I don't need no armor to do none of that. I'm taking you down today." Astrid for president. Moving on to like some overall comments though. I love that the fight scenes are given weight and they feel real. Like a kill is earned and scars are kept. I respect that our heroes are mutilated by the end of it all and changed by the experiences because of how much more believable it makes the scenes, right? Also, the scene where the Lich deceived them was masterfully done in my opinion.
The other day I was tidying up and drove the chairs down to the cellar so they didn't get in the way. While I was down there, the floor started shaking and the dead broke out from under the things and something else. I'm not sure. It was dark and scary. I don't remember anything else, my boy. The years take their toll. Memory fails.
Making me chuckle at how well he covered the story too. This is not a foreign evil, but one well acquainted with our human ways. In fact, I'm pretty sure the Lich was human at some point. There's something beautiful about the way that the possessions remake the body in their own design, right? As morbid as it is, it's a way of self-affirming themselves by destroying what was and saying, "I'm here." And of course, I wouldn't want it to happen to me, but coming from the Lich's perspective, especially with maybe some disdains that a Lich has against life, I get it. And I understand what that might mean. Or maybe this is just a projection, but going on to say my next point, the scene in minute 31 is really reminiscent of Evil Dead for me.
I don't like the sound of this.
Should I check?
Nah, our servant will warn us if something happens. Astrid, check the hole in the floor.
Brothers, to arms!
Use the tables, hurry!
especially when the crew is locked in the cabin. Like there's a sense of like, you don't know what's on the outside world. You're just fighting what's within, and God knows what's waiting for you outside, upstairs. You know, that sense of isolation and almost being driven insane. You know, there was points where the crew weren't working well together. If it wasn't for Astrid's ability to get everyone in line, you know. Another point of mine is I like the subversion of Jonna losing the way she did during the training arc. And the reason I think it was good is because it got me to believe that, yo, maybe this, like, well, first of all, I was already critical of the fact that, like, why is this girl out here wearing this armor when all the other dudes are armored up? And I'm like, oh my God, here we go, another story like this. So when she lost, I was like, okay. But I get it, because it's like literally like you're not armored. But that prompted me to expect Astrid to be a similar situation. So when Astrid started whooping ass, I'm surprised. I'm like, oh! So that initial loss against Joseph with Jonna really helped the twist that Astrid, despite her attire, is actually the fiercest warrior around. Besides Anna, but you know, we're not gonna talk about that. Another thing is, and this wasn't until I was watching it over with a friend, Bomb. There's so many pieces moving at once. Like, how did you, and what, this was you with your iPhone and like a solo project, or maybe people helped you, but how did you get so many pieces moving at once, bro? Like, and you could tell that they're not, maybe not, like maybe some of them, but most of them are not added in post. You really move in all these different characters while they're doing all different things. That means you had to plan that out. Like, that's a level of like, oh, we can't just edit. Maybe you can't edit in post. I'm not a professional in that way, but I just think that's amazing. Also, the last couple of entries were some of the most hopeless messages I've ever seen. Like, I truly felt dread, bro. I truly felt dread. Like, yo, after y'all done fought this fucking war, you feel me? Went toe to toe. Some of your people died and you thought you win. And now there's a time skip and you hear this.
Entry 3. Our order is doomed. I am the last one who still keeps his sanity. Yet I am too old to fight the abominations that my brothers and sisters has turned into. Entry 4. I locked myself on the second floor out of despair. There is no escape, no salvation.
Another general note is that this evil is largely man-made, right? My assumption is that the original Lich was a man who, instead of dying a normal death, clung to life to enjoy his pleasures and became corrupt. And I think that's why Joseph, being the next kind of runner-up for the Lich, is my new theory. My next point is that I love the detail at minute 44 that it wasn't Astrid that ultimately defeated the Lich, but God himself, right? Upon the request of one of his most loyal servants, right? Because it highlighted that it's not about, because had Astrid just defeated the Lich with her own abilities, then that would have kind of reinforced Joseph's way of believing, where it's like, I could just be a good fighter, fuck God, and I can just like you know, drink. I don't have to have faith. Where Astrid, as strong as she is, arguably even maybe better than Joseph, but she couldn't do it. She had to rely on God, and thus God obliged her. You feel me? Because it was a genuine request from the heart. Another point is the source of the Lich's power being the bottle itself is a nice touch, especially with the mirror it holds up to Joseph, right? Skilled men ruled by vices and unfaithful towards God tend to make for very bad people sometimes. And maybe not, like, okay, let's say if you're an atheist, but unfaithful towards a sense of connection beyond what is evident in front of you, right? Like, maybe just a love for humankind would suffice. Something bigger than just you and your pleasures and your life and your intelligence and you, right? This next portion of the video is going to be more character driven. Let's talk about Joseph, right? The drunken master. Joseph's quote, where he says, "Pray my ass, misfits. My religion is vodka," at 1850 is fucking hilarious. And sadly true, you know? Oh, that was really loud. But sadly true for not only the drunken master himself, but many of us in the world today. How many of us would just resort to worlds of pleasure to ease the pain and passage of time, whether it be doom scrolling, playing a game, or doing drugs, right? Like, I like Joseph because he's real, not some ideal to be met like Astrid or Anna, right? Or even Balder to some extent, but a real person who exists in every part of the world. And also, him finding the liquor in the midst of a crazy battle is what makes him so fucking hilarious, right? Ultimately, his flaw is a lack of faith in the world around him, and, you know, through that, God, right? Which is backed up by the fact that he often is right about many things, but he forgets that he isn't right about everything. For example, right? Joseph was right in saying that someone who's barely clothed can't be serious about going into battle, and proved it by defeating John of Bad in the training session. Given this, he would have had reason to believe it's foolish to have faith in such a belief, and thus it's foolish to believe in God or have faith in God, because the consequences of such faith to him seem to go nowhere and lead to ruin. Thus, he falls on things that can more readily give him control or comfort, and that's why he's so great in battle and indulging in pleasure. Despite these being more immediate options, they ultimately lead to his ruin, though, right? And just expanding on that last sentence a bit, being great at battle means that you can control the will of others, ultimately. And indulging in pleasure means that you can control your experience. You don't have to feel pain if you can override the experience with just pleasure. But despite these being more immediate options, they ultimately lead to his ruin and corruption. Though he lived, whereas the one who wore no armor died. But one thing to note is that she was never corrupted, right? It'd be difficult for someone in Joseph's position to see that the invisible nature of the faith in something greater in yourself would lead to greener pastures than that of the momentary pleasure and control, because he's constantly at his green pasture, albeit an ever-fading one that he'll never be able to enjoy long-term without constantly toiling to attain it again and again. As a friend of mine, Nate, said, this is what happens when you're weak to what hurts you, you know? And though what I think is sadder is that when you believe that what hurts you is actually what empowers you, now that weakness is perceived as a virtue, and you'll be proud for seeking it. A difficult illusion to see through, and one relevant to many of us in different ways. Let's pray for Joseph. When it comes to the Lich, he's fucking horrifying and inhumanly cold in the way he butchered that poor servant. I honestly love the very worst aspects of the Lich. His disregards for the ways of human life and morality. And that sounds weird, but like, the Lich stands as the perfect representative of one who would stand against God. And instead of giving people the free will to choose his ways, he uses trickery and force to take their bodies. And I'm not saying I love him as in I condone these things, but I love that there's such an accurate representation of one who has this disdain for life itself. And that, you know, essentially the journey is to take this down, right? But he takes people's bodies and to ultimately do what, right? It's just to serve his own pleasure. And part of that pleasure is denial of life. In one, spite of it all, and two, invalidating his own existence and how he sees things. Or so I presume. On to Astrid. Yo, she's so fucking badass. Like, despite any reservations I might have had, she's a bastion of faith and strength, bro. An amazing leader who knows the motivations of others and weaknesses as well. Like, when Joseph didn't want to fight, she was like, bro, I'll get you more liquor. You know, like, she could have kept berating him and everything, but she knew what would get him to move in that moment, even if she didn't want that future for him. And that's something that, although you can compare to the Lich in that the Lich also tried to convince him with liquor, the Lich ultimately would want him to stay in that pool, while she was just using that to get him to move. And that's what makes a great leader. So This is why she's one of my favorite characters, especially in contrast and how she came off to me at first, where I'm like, oh my god, what is this about to be? Because I clicked on this and I had no idea what I was gonna get into. I just saw the thumbnail and I'm like, well, let's see. So when I saw her come out and how she's dressed, I'm like, okay, is this not going to take her seriously? But she's the most fucking badass person in this whole goddamn series, bro. Like, okay, for example, right? How she charges in at minute 41. Like, that shit was so, like, bro, I would be shook. Astrid is truly deserving of being God's champion. Then we have Anna. Anna's a fucking soldier, bro. Zoro would be so proud of her. At minute 37, right? She lost her arm. She picked up the fucking sword with the other arm and kept fighting. She's a Crash Out Emperor 2025. And then the way she protects Astrid is wild commendable, bro. Like, I could never ask for a better homie, a better ride or die. She is the GOAT. Boulder didn't have a lot of scenes, alright? I'm not gonna lie, but the ones that he did told me more than enough about him to trust him as a successor to Astrid, right? Like, if it's not Anna, it's gotta be Boulder. When he did that final prayer for the fallen brethren in the Battle of the Woods, I know this wasn't just some average mercenary guy, but a guy who truly loved the people he fought with. Thus, it really makes sense for him to come in at the end, learning what the situation was, and decide to take the mission upon himself now. It's not coming from left field, and I really love that for him. When it comes to the sound design, bro, like, at minute 30, when the Lich was saying take, that shit was fucking horrifying. I deadass felt fear. Also at minute 39, I'm gonna just play that for you real quick. You telling me you heard this and you not shook? Alright. So, now we're moving on to the negatives of my thoughts on this experience, right? Was the scene with Jonna really just training? Like, that was brutal as fuck. What kind of training, like, damn near injures you that way? And, I mean, it's not necessarily like a negative, but it's just like, damn, bro. Like, damn. My main grift with this movie is, honestly, I love the idea that Astrid is scantily clad, not for sexual reasons, but because she made a vow to God not to wear armor or clothes. That's badass, but that's only sufficient for an in-universe explanation. You know what I'm saying? In the real world, that was still a choice of yours to depict these characters in this way. My point being that you trying to make her the most devoted warrior and like badass and everything kind of comes off as an excuse to just sexualize her and get away with it, right? So I think that you should have really diversified these naked characters further, like, so that it wouldn't just seem like I'm just trying to put a girl in a bikini, and if you complain about it, well, it's like, actually, she's not just a girl in a bikini. But it's like, sometimes when you're being ironic, you're still doing the thing. But I saw some of the sketches that your father drew of Astrid, and I believe they fixed the issue while still carrying the message that you wanted to send across. But, I know you might want to stick to the original design because that's what you wanted to do, right? And fuck it, do what you want to do. But I feel that it would be a little bit more believable that this is a religion where people do this, and not just that the writer wanted to do this and get away with it. If other characters also wore bikinis too, and particularly some men, you feel me? So I really feel like unless I see that in the next movie, it kind of just feels like, I wanted to do this and build the character up as much as I can to prove that it can be done without it, like, without it being wrong. And it's not wrong per se, but when you hold it up against an industry where it's like women are sexualized just for breathing, then it's like doing this And it is refreshing that you made her own character, her own person, and it's not about titties, not about boobs, but at the end of the day, it's kind of like she's the only one in this world who chose to really do that. And if it was really a religious thing, I feel like more people would have done that with her, you know. But you guys tell me, you know, what your thoughts on that is. But some of my last comments, or I think the last comment, was what I think was some wasted potential, right? God's champion came down in armor, and it's kind of like, what was the whole thing? And this connects to the whole Astrid thing, right? Astrid, like, you know, I mean, maybe this was just a personal vow of hers, but it's like, you know, she made this vow. She's one of the best soldiers of God. Then God's champion comes down to save her, and he's armored down. And it's like, well, what was the point of saying that, oh, we're not going to wear armor? Because then it kind of goes against the theme. You know what I'm saying? Or maybe I misunderstood the theme. But I don't know. That just kind of threw me off. It's like, I kind of expected God's soldier to be a naked dude when he came down to something, you know? But hey, that's just one of my thoughts. Overall, I watched the movie twice, and I love it. I love it because I can see the love that you put into it, the work that you put into it, all of the moving pieces, the sound design, the voices. Even on Reddit, how you were posting the trailers and snippets and all of these little things leading up to it. Like, you really put time into this movie, and I appreciate that. So, thank you, Konrad. Thank you for putting this out, and have a good day, y'all. Tell me your thoughts and opinions, man. I'd like to hear them. Peace.